Kevin from Springfield Leather. This is...
I'm Denny. I'm from Springfield Leather also.
We're both a pair, as some people would say. You know, it's come to my attention over the years that most leather crafters, well, we're a peculiar bunch in a friendly sort of way. And one thing I've discovered that we're not very good at is most of us really aren't artists. But we can copy and we can trace, and we have to do that. We're forced because we can't draw. But Denny here is going to demonstrate the art of making something called a tap-off. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, it's kind of like a craft aid in reverse. How does a tap-off help us, Denny?
Well, basically, the only thing we use a tap-off for are flowers and leaves, because all the rest of this, what I call chicken necks and acanthus stumps and things like that, are space fillers. But you want your flowers and your leaves to be fairly symmetrical. So we make what they call a tap-off pattern. And this is a finished tap-off pattern right here. This is a leaf, this is a flower. And rather than trace another flower on this piece of leather, I'm going to use this tap-off to show you how to make another tap-off. So
how do you go about it?
Well, get yourself a nice piece of leather. I like about an 8 or a 9 ounce piece of leather. That's firm enough to keep its body, and it's going to last for a long, long time.
So if I'm right, then a good piece of leather here is essential, a firm piece.
Right, a good firm piece. You don't
piece of Herman oak or something
right,
like that.
And you don't want anything real flanky or soft.
Now I saw you spray this down.
Yes, you want to get your leather pretty damp. In fact, I'm going to spray it one more time.
You had it pretty wet to start with, but I noticed that it was starting to come back to the natural color.
Right, it was starting to temper back where it didn't have as much moisture in it. You want quite a bit of moisture in it when you're actually tapping something off. So what I'm going to do is take this flower, turn it upside down, take a hammer, any kind of a hammer will do, but then you just tap this tap-off pattern like this.
Have you ever hit your fingers?
Yes, I have several times.
So if you don't get it on there perfect the first time, what happens? You just go back on there?
Well, try to get it back in the right spot again.
Well, it looks like it's pretty... Looks like it's easy to do because you've got a depression in there.
Right. I don't know if you can see this.
Well, I think they can. So it's kind of like a craft aid in reverse, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Instead of having protrusions on the craft aid, you've actually got cut lines that this leather comes up into.
So this is great then, if I'm not mistaken. If you were to take the time and either draw or have someone else draw a pattern for you, you could cut it out and use and have that to use forever.
Exactly. I've had this particular tap-off pattern for probably 20 years.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can use it over and over.
So what do you do next?
All right, now that you've got it your tap-off tapped, I'm going to take and, excuse me.
You're going to take and get a mallet.
I'm going to take and get it, yes. This is my flower center.
Hold that up so they can see it there. We tapped a flower center into it. Well, that's simple enough.
Mm-hmm. See, and it's just like that one.
Okay.
Then you just take your swivel knife and you cut the lines just like you would on any pattern that you drew on, or a craft aid pattern.
I know your knife is sharp because I see you sharpen it all the time.
Yes, that's imperative.
And it really makes a difference here since you're cutting on good leather, it cuts fairly smoothly.
Yes, and that's another thing. You want to cut fairly deep on this, and you'll see why here in just a little bit. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut this whole flower out.
Now I notice you're using one of our pro knives that we designed. Do you care for those at all?
I love this knife. It's tapered on the end. It doesn't eat on your fingers like most swivel knives do.
Well, that's pretty good. Now, for what it's worth, Denny's been carving leather for a lot of years, probably more years than he would care for me to tell.
Yes.
But he has learned under some extraordinarily talented people. And having all of this knowledge here at Springfield Leather, well, we're pretty fortunate, and we're glad to have it. And just by way of conversation, if you have questions about this, don't hesitate to ask. That's why we have this little Ask Kevin thing on our website, and we're very accessible by telephone. We're happy to do our best to see that you can be successful in whatever you do.
Sure, you can call me anytime too.
I notice you about got that done, and that looks pretty deep.
It is deep.
It's not perfect, Denny.
Doesn't have to be. Nothing is perfect. I've never seen anything that was perfect. Have you?
No, my wife has, but I have not.
Okay.
That's nice. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be in the ballpark.
The key to any swivel knife work is when you're cutting, watch where you're getting ready to cut, not where you have cut. Because when you watch behind yourself, you aren't watching where you're going, and you lose track a lot. Anyway, let's pretend this is dry, because this one is. It's one I did the other day.
So that was dry, and you just cut it out.
Yeah. I just cut it out.
And you left what, 1/4 inch around it or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
And the main reason is all of these little inside curves here. I'm going to just take this rotary punch and punch those out.
Well, now that's a trick, because inside curves are kind of challenging to cut.
They are very challenging.
And that rotary punch tube is perfectly round, so it automatically gives you a perfect radius.
Exactly.
You know, you are smarter than folks say.
Well, I learned a lot of this by accident.
Well, it was good learning, I can see that.
You know what they say, give a monkey a typewriter, and sooner or later they'll write a word.
Okay, so you're just making sure that that tube is right inside those.
Yeah, you want it, and this is another reason why you want those cuts deep, because actually the outside edge of this
you can kind of catch it with that punch.
Yes.
I see that now.
The outside edge is the part that's going to make your impression.
Okay.
And the underside really isn't going to do much, but if you can get in that cut, it's deep enough that the underside won't affect it.
Now you could actually do that with a drive punch too, couldn't you?
Sure. Dry punch would work good. I need to get.
Go ahead. So this is what we have so far. I can see, not perfect, but okay.
Yeah. Now this big one, I am going to use a drive punch on.
You want a mallet? Here you go.
Okay. Now see what we have?
Okay, that's nice.
Okay. Now to finish this out, you could use, a lot of people might use an X-Acto knife or something to that effect, but I just use a little lacing chisel, about an 1/8 of an inch lacing chisel.
You know, that a lot of people don't realize how much you can do with a lacing chisel.
That's exactly right.
I know over the years I figured out that using a lacing chisel to filigree is a pretty darn fast way of filigreeing.
What I'm doing is
you
just
stand over here, Denny, that way you
Okay.
can kind of see.
What I'm doing is just following these lines, and there again, that's why you want to be cut deep, because this lacing chisel is straight and it won't cut a curve, but you've already got the curve cut on the outside surface.
Okay. So again, it doesn't matter if this is perfectly smooth, it just has to be pretty good.
Correct. You want to make it as smooth as possible, but you aren't going to be perfect. If you used a knife to do it with, you wouldn't be perfect. And it's a lot harder to do with a knife.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you've got a cutting surface underneath your chisel, either one like Denny's using here, a hard rubber, or a white poly cutting
Right.
surface, which would work quite well also. But it needs to be sitting on granite so that you have some solidity to it when you go to hit that thing.
Exactly.
I notice you've got your chisel slanted just a little bit, not much, to kind of cut inwards.
Yeah, I want to kind of undercut, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. What you're doing there.
That's the first time you've ever said I made sense.
Yeah, I got carried away. It's probably the last time. Let's see. Now, is this a good time maybe to just take a look at this and then, oh, okay. So what you've got, pretending we're done, is this.
Exactly. That's what you will end up with. And when you get done, you want to go over this with a clear coat of some sort, something to waterproof it, like clear lac or something to that effect.
Kind of heavy.
Yes, yes. You want to coat it pretty good. Maybe put a couple of coats on it. And what's that? That'll waterproof it and make it durable.
Firm it up.
Yes, because when you're using this, you're using it on a piece of damp leather, and if you don't have it waterproof, that's going to take on water. It's going to mush your lines up there where they don't show as well.
Well, that's pretty nice. So in reality, if you've got some old pieces of hard belly that are laying around or something, that'd make an ideal tap off, because you
Yes.
could get out there in those hard edges of the leather,
Exactly.
soak them down, flatten them out, and use that.
That would be great. Yes, it's a good way to use up scrap, and you can
Man,
you
if you
can make hundreds of different tap off patterns.
I can see where all of a sudden you could end up with 10 or 12 different floral flowers that you didn't have to trace. And
Exactly,
it's all there.
exactly. And to show you what you can do with them, this is the same flower on a finished pattern.
I can see that. That's really nice. It's not perfect, but it's nice.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're very welcome. Is that good for our first section?
I would say so. Be as careful as you can when you're making these. You know, make them as nice as you can, because there's something that you're going to use over and over. And if they're very imperfect, you won't care for them. So you might as well do them as good as you can.
That makes sense. So now we're going to go to the next step.
Okay.
Okay, Denny, so I'm with you so far. We're just pretending that we've got this one all done and we've ended up with this, and that's good. So just kind of how far can you go with this?
You can go a long ways with this. You can actually draw and cut a full pattern on one piece of leather and tap it off onto another piece of leather.
So you're saying you could tap something like this off on that?
Yes, yes.
Well, I noticed you've got another piece of leather
Yeah,
here.
what you will end up with, though, you have to keep in mind, is a mirror image of what you've already got on this piece.
Okay.
Because you
So it's reversed.
Exactly. Which, you know, if, all right, as an example, the back jockey's on a saddle. You've got two pieces of leather that are coming together in the center.
Yeah.
And you want to make both pieces mirror images of each other.
You'd have to be careful.
You can use that. But there's lots of other ways to use it too. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this. There again, your leather needs to be fairly damp.
Normally I get all wet when this happens.
And this is a piece that I've already drawn the pattern on and already cut with a swivel knife.
So that's the same pattern as what we have here.
Exactly. The
Okay.
same pattern.
So all you've done is drawn it on there and
And
cut it.
cut it with a swivel knife, yes. Now what I'm going to do is turn this over. You want to be careful and line it up. And you've got to hold things in place. Now to tap this off, takes quite a bit of tapping.
That's a large paddle.
Yes. But you can do even larger patterns. like I said, I've done back jockeys on a saddle. I've done saddle skirts. I've done fenders. You know, you want them to be as close to the same as you can possibly make them.
So this is a good part of the hobby to take out your aggressions on.
Exactly.
Holy buckets. That worked really good.
Now I've got exactly the same thing, only backwards.
That's nice. You're not as dumb as folks say. Did I say that before?
Yes, you've already mentioned that.
That's nice.
Yes.
That's a great pattern. Okay. Well, that's probably a good place for us to leave it for now. And we'll add more too.
Okay.